Now I would just like to finish off on this little mini series of videos aimed at the general public on how to save gas. So in this video I'm going to give you 15 of my best tips on how to reduce your energy consumption in your heating and hot water to hopefully save you gas and hopefully save you some money when all these gas prices go through the roof. So let's get on with it. So you always start at number one. So tip number one is turn down your room thermostat. Now, whether you've got one of these, which is a RF room stat, or whether you've got one of the old room stats stuck on the wall, or whether you've got your mobile phone as a room stat, you need to make sure you're setting it to the right temperature. Now they reckon comfort temperature is 21 degrees, so that's you sat there watching TV doing nothing and feeling lovely and warm. But 21 degrees is quite a warm temperature. So if you can get your temperature lower than the 21 degrees and still be nice and warm, that's what you need to do. So you don't really want your house to go lower than 15 degrees. So try and set your room stat, if you're in a living room, of 18, 19 degrees. Obviously in bedrooms we want a lot lower temperatures, but we don't go no lower than 15. And in our bathrooms we want a little bit hotter because we're going to be naked, but 20 degrees in your bathroom is good enough. So my first tip is turn down that heating, because they do say from every degree you turn it down from 21 degrees you're probably going to save yourself a tenner. That might be different now because of all these gas hikes. Now if you haven't got a room stat, why not? Because it's law now that you have to have a room stat, and it will save you a massive amount of money. So if you haven't got a room stat, get one fitted, because it will save you money if you can set your room to a given temperature. Also, don't leave these things on coffee tables. They should be installed 1.5 meters off the ground on a wall, and make sure you're not it's not directly opposite a window so you gain solar gain and stuff like that. But if you are carrying them around, put them on a fireplace as long as the fire's not on, because if your fire's on it will knock it off. And if you have a thermostatic radiator valve in the same room, then turn it to maximum so they don't fight with each other. And this will control the whole of the house, not just the room you're sat in. Because once the room you're sat in gets up to the desired temperature, this will turn your heating off. And the best way of saving energy, so they say, is don't have your heating running. But that can cause other problems. I've covered those in my other videos. So if you haven't seen my other couple of videos about saving gas, or the last two videos on saving gas, I'll put some links down in the comment section below and the description. So that's number one. Turn your room stat down or get one. So after number one is always number two. So number two is set your thermostatic radiator valves to the correct temperature for the room. So if you turn this one all the way round to number 5, that means it's on all the time and doesn't actually turn the radiator off. If you turn it all the way to 0, then it's off. If you turn it to the little star, that's frost setting. So that means it won't allow your room to go lower than 5 degrees. If you turn it to number 1, it's between 5 and 10 degrees for the room. If you turn it to number 2, it's 10 to 15. Number 3, 15 to 20. Number 4 will be 20 to 25, and then obviously if there's a number 5 it'll be on all the time. So that's what most of them are set up like. So make sure you set your thermostatic radiator valves to the right one. Turning it on to maximum does not make your radiator get hotter. It just means it stays on longer. Setting these on here is the room temperature, so what the air temperature in that room is going to be. So the lower we can have this and we still be comfortable, because remember it's all about being comfortable, then you're going to save money. If you've got it on 5, it's not going to save you any money. And if you put it on 0, that could make rooms freeze and burst pipes in there. So use the right setting on the right radiator in the right room. That's number 2. Now, number 3, or the next few, but number 3 are to do with radiators. So when your radiator is running, is it very hot at the bottom but cold at the top? Well, if it is, it might need bleeding, because if you've got air trapped at the top here, your radiator becomes inefficient. So you need to get yourself a radiator bleed key and a bit of a tissue. We can go down to the bleed end here, place in the radiator bleed valve, and if you get air coming out of the radiator, then it needs bleeding. And that didn't take much. And then you can check the water quality or the water colour on your tissue, because if this is black, like this little bit down here is, then it might mean your system needs cleaning. Now that leads me nicely into number 4. Is it the opposite way round? Is your radiator warm at the top and cold at the bottom? Well, if it's that way round, then you could have sludge in your radiator and you can have sludge in your system. So if you've got sludge going around your central heating system, it will make it very, very inefficient, because it'll need more energy to heat that sludgy water up. So you can test the water quality on your radiators like I did with this little bit of rag here. So if you've got brown water coming out, or you've got black, really thick water coming out, then you've got a problem with your water quality, and your heating system then will need to be drained, flushed, cleaned. It could be magna cleansed, it could be power flushed, and then it needs fresh water putting back in, an inhibitor to stop the corrosion, because basically that's what that black and brown coloured water is. It's your radiator system, your central heating system, corroding and rotting away, causing us major problems of inefficient heating systems. So go round to all your radiators, check and see whether they're hot at the top or hot or cold at the bottom, or the other way around, and make sure they're running at their most efficient, because a sludgy system is going to cause you major problems. Now, just a little side note for this: if you haven't got a magnetic filter installed on your boiler, you need to get one, because this will help you get rid of any future magnetite or corrosion in your system. And make sure it gets serviced every year, and you can actually service it yourself. You don't need a gas engineer to be able to service your filter. You just need to know what to do. I've done a few videos, and there's loads of videos on the internet on how to do that. So if you haven't got a filter fitted, get one. Now, number 5. How often do you clean in between your radiator? If you look down your radiator, can you see it's all nice and clean where the fins are? Or is it just a mess? So get your little vacuum cleaner, give it a vac top and bottom, and get yourself a big feather duster. Get it down there. I'd wear a mask as well if I was you, if you've not done it for a while, because it does get pretty dusty down there. Because remember, the radiators work by bringing the air up round the back or from underneath, so it brings all the dust and everything from round the house and shoves it on the back of your radiators. So make sure your radiators are well cleaned. And that leads me quite nicely into number 6. This radiator here is installed on an outside wall. So if you have a radiator installed on an outside wall, you can put some silver foil down the back, or there's some special deflectors systems you can buy from your local DIY shop to be able to slide down the back of the radiator. Because if you've watched my other videos, radiators only give off 10% radiant heat. The rest is all through convection, but it'll also radiate that 10% to a cold wall, outside wall. So putting a deflector or a bit of kitchen foil down the back of your radiator will deflect that heat back to the radiator, saving you a bit of money. And my last little tip with radiators, don't hang your washing on the radiators. Because it's going to stop your radiator working, because remember the air comes underneath and over the top, so it's going to stop your radiator working and make your house cold, and it will also put that moist warm air from your clothes onto your ceiling and circulate around your house. So don't cover your radiators with your washing. But there are little racks you can buy which hook onto the radiators, which keeps your washing off the top of your radiators, so your radiators will still work, and we can use that 10% of the radiant heat coming off the radiator to warm your washing, but it's still going to put that damp warm air into your room, which isn't very good because it creates mold and damp. Now, number 8 is what one of my videos has been all about. Adjust our flow temperature on the boiler to 55 degrees, and hopefully your radiators will be big enough to be able to cope with these lower flow temperatures of your boiler. Check out the video, link in the description down below, to see the full video and find out exactly what benefits you get from lowering the flow temperature from your central heating. Now, number 9 is also taken from the same video. So this is a combination boiler. So if you have a combination boiler, why not reduce your water temperature to 48 degrees on the boiler? Or reduce the water enough so that you can run a bath and get in that bath without adding cold water to it. Because if you're adding cold water to a bath before you get in it, you've wasted a load of heat. Now, if you've got a regular boiler or a system boiler heating a hot water cylinder, then adjust your flow temperature to around about 60 degrees and see if you run out of water or not. We don't want to reduce this too low because Legionella comes into play if you take it lower than 50. So in the UK, we always store our water between 60 and 65 degrees. So, lowering your water temperature on your combi boiler is also going to save you some cash and gas. Number 10, also on the controls for boilers. If your boiler has a preheat on the hot water, turn it off because it's not needed. The reason why they have the preheat is so the water's hot when it gets to your tap. So it's going to save you water. But at the moment, water's cheap, gas and electric are mega expensive. So this Worcester Bosch boiler, if you press this eco button in, it will turn off your preheat. Now, lots of different boilers have preheats, lots of different boilers have different ways of turning the preheat on and off. If you take this ideal boiler here, we've got a preheat setting here. If I go above the maximum, so if I set this to 48 degrees, the preheat would be off. So read your boiler manufacturer's instructions to find out, first of all, if your boiler does have preheat on your hot water, and then how to turn it off, because we don't need it at the moment. So that's number 10, get your preheat turned off. Let's have a look at number 11. Now, number 11 is all about setting your time controls for your central heating and your hot water. So whether you're using smart controls or whether you're just using the old-fashioned controls, what you need to do is make sure you set up your times so that when you are not in the house, your heating isn't coming on and your hot water's not being heated, because you're just wasting energy. You don't really want to heat your house when you're not there. This is where these smart thermostats come in, where they do the geofencing working off your mobile phone, and they'll turn your heating and your hot water off when you're away from the house, and when you're approaching the house, they will turn the heating on if you want them to. So smart thermostats are amazing for helping you cut down your fuel bill, but they are pricey to install in the first place. But learn how to use them and set them up correctly. If you're struggling to set them up, there's loads of videos on the YouTube to help you, but it's massively important that you do set these controls up, including the setback temperatures for nighttime when you're in bed. Don't really want your house going lower than 15 degrees in winter, and you can use your setback temperatures for that. So if your house does go below that during the night, you can top it up a little bit. So when you get up in the morning, you're not using more energy than you should do to get it up to the temperature you want to. So use your programmers correctly. That's number 11. Now that leads us nicely into number 12. Insulate your pipework. So if you've got a cistern up in your loft, is it lagged? Is it insulated? Does it have a lid on it? Is all the pipework insulated going to it? Because it's just not there to stop it freezing, it's also to stop it losing heat. So get up in your loft if it's safe to do so, and check that your cistern is insulated. You like to call them tanks, but they're not, they're cisterns. Also, do you have a cylinder to heat your hot water? That's the other thing you call a tank in your airing cupboard, and it's the thing what heats your hot water. And we either have vented or unvented ones. Now, is that insulated? Is all your pipe work coming off that cylinder insulated? Well, you need to get it done if it isn't. Also, if you are lowering your flow temperatures on your boiler to 55 degrees, insulate the pipe work coming off your boiler, because you don't want to be losing extra heat going to the radiators because you haven't got much to start off with. Now, some people will say, oh, that's not needed because the heat goes into the house anyway, but you do need the heat to get to the radiators first, otherwise you're going to get warm rooms and cold rooms, and that's not what you want. So have a look around your house and see if there is anything what needs insulating. Also, have you had a look under your floor? If it is safe to do so, get under your floor as well and insulate your pipes, whether they're made of copper, whether they're made of plastic, because it's all about not losing heat. So the more heat you can keep in the pipe, the more it can be used at your radiators. So, number 12, get all that pipework insulated. Now, let's have a look at, unlucky for some, number 13. Make sure around your windows and doors are draft proofed. If you haven't got double glazing or triple glazing or secondary glazing, at least make sure around your windows there's some draft proofing. Make sure all your external doors are draft proofed and the doors going into your internal rooms. Also, don't forget that letterbox, because there's some cold wind blows through that letterbox, so make sure your letterbox has been draft proofed as well. And try and keep your windows and doors in the really cold months closed as much as you can. Now we are nearly there at the end, number 14. Make sure before we get into winter that you get your boiler serviced, because getting your boiler serviced could find loads of little faults with your installation and your radiators and your pipework, what could be costing you money. And if you haven't got a condensing boiler, why not? You need to get your old boilers replaced. So if you haven't got a condensing boiler and you've got an old like open flued back boiler, they could be down as little as 50% efficient. So for every £100 you're spending on gas, 50 quid of it's going up the chimney. So if you can afford it now, get your boilers replaced, because an inefficient boiler is one of the biggest things that's going to cost you money this winter. And finally, number 15, which is probably the most common question I get asked. Is it better to leave your central heating system on all the time, or just turn it on for an hour or two to warm your house up? That is the question. One of the things I always say is you shouldn't allow your house to go down lower than 15 degrees in the winter months, because it creates loads of problems like mold and damp, or it uses a lot more energy to get it back up to your temperature you want. Also, like I've said in this video, if it goes below 5 degrees, your house, then your pipes can start to freeze, because that's when water starts to freeze. It freezes by the time it reaches 0. So anyway, so if you've got smart thermostats, then you can set your smart thermostat to a given temperature at night time called the setback temperature, which is normally about 15 degrees. So that will just tickle along if you need to top your heat back up. Now, turning your boiler on for an hour in the morning, an hour at night at full whap could possibly use less heat than it would do if it's just tickling along all day. It's unlikely, depending on the size of your house, but it can waste a lot of heat that way as well, because your room temperatures, if your radiators are too big, can go over temperature. So if you set your flow temperature to 20 degrees and you've got radiators that are too big, then you could end up heating your room up to 30 degrees, just wasting heat, wasting energy. So it's trial and error. Like I say, if you've got smart thermostats, set your temperatures low, set your setback temperature to 15 and let it tickle along, but don't heat your house when you're not in it. So use your time clocks. If you've got a dog at home or a cat at home or a goldfish or a budgie, do they care whether your house is at 15 degrees or 20 degrees? No, they don't. They don't care. So don't leave your heating on because you've got pets at home. Only have your heating on to a low temperature and a low flow rate if you're in the property. It's as simple as that. When you're not in the property, have it turned off, but still have that setback temperature of 15 degrees. So that is my look at 15 tips at trying to save energy, saving gas and saving your cash over this winter, where they reckon gas and electric prices are going to go through the roof. Our new Prime Minister has already said she's going to put a cap on energy for our maximum prices for the general public. She's trying to sort that out. So hopefully she does and gives us a good cap, low down, so hopefully we can all get through the winter in good health, with money in our pockets and being able to feed our families. So hopefully you've liked the video. Cheers, I'll catch you on the next one.